Bellagio, Smellagio. This place is 1,000 times cooler. Hello, Wonderhussy here, standing in the middle of one of the busiest, but decidedly most unglamorous thoroughfares in all of Las Vegas, Boulder Highway. That's right, this 15-mile highway runs all the way from the heart of the downtown Las Vegas casino district to the farthest reaches of rocket fuel-drenched Hendertucky, way down in the southeast part of the Vegas Valley. And back in the day, this was the main highway heading south to the Hoover Dam before Interstate 11 came along and siphoned off all the traffic. And just like other small towns on dumpy little highways bypassed by interstates across America, the businesses on Boulder Highway have seen better days. But that's what makes Boulder Highway so interesting. There's some pretty sketchy, funky stuff down here, which, in my opinion, makes it 1,000 times more interesting than the Vegas Strip. And speaking of the Vegas Strip, they call this part of Boulder Highway the Boulder Strip because it's got a bunch of its own casinos. And unlike the fancy casinos over on Las Vegas Boulevard, you don't have to pay to park here. Basically, you just get more bang for your buck down on Boulder Highway. Okay, this place right here, the East Side Cannery, is one of the fanciest hotels on the Boulder Highway. Matter of fact, there's a really cool rooftop bar on the top deck of the hotel tower. You might be able to see. I zoom in there. Really cool balcony with an amazing view. I mean, being all the way over here on the east side of the valley as we are, you can imagine, standing up on that balcony looking that way, you'd have an awesome view of the entire Vegas Strip. Unfortunately, it looks like this hotel is now closed. I guess it probably closed because of COVID. And, well, sadly, it looks like it hasn't reopened since. And this right here is the Longhorn Casino, which you can see from their sign has an awesome $13.99 16-ounce porterhouse steak special. You know how all the casinos used to have that cheap steak special and hardly any of them seem to do that anymore? Matter of fact, I was downtown Las Vegas last night. Downtown Vegas, which is supposedly cheaper than the Strip. And the steakhouse at the Circa Hotel charges $45 for a hamburger. I know where I'm coming next time. Anyway, this is one of those kind of dumpy little locals casinos where you can go play video poker and smoke cigarettes and eat cheap steak. And, well, apparently there's a hotel here too. Although the entrance doesn't look very welcoming. And I actually just watched Animal Control come pick up this giant, beautiful German Shepherd that somebody apparently abandoned in their room when they checked out. And then we have Sam's Town, which is kind of noteworthy for two different reasons. One, it's the name of a Killers album. Okay, you know that band, The Killers? Well, they're actually from Las Vegas, and I think they named their second album Sam's Town after this casino. But even better than that is this giant, weird atrium inside the middle of the casino, which really has to be seen to be believed. So let's go inside and take a look. Okay, I told you this place is a trip. It's like being at an Embassy Suites. Remember how Embassy Suites all used to, or maybe still do, have that big atrium in the middle? Well, this is basically like the Vegas version of Embassy Suites. There's even a little fake creek with a fake waterfall. There's a mildly terrifying animatronic beaver. And apparently there's some kind of super cheesy show that goes off a few times a night with all kinds of creepy animatronic critters. Man, I'm definitely gonna have to come back and watch this show sometime because it seems like it would be surreal and awesome. And there's a bar right in the middle of it. And then, of course, there's a bunch of other hotel casinos like Arizona Charlie's, Boulder Station, Joker's Wild, and my favorite, the Skyline Casino. This place has an absolutely incredible lounge, or at least it did back in 2018, which was the last time I went there. Went to the lounge with my friend Scott, and there was an amazing old-timey country western singer playing on the stage, and there was like 3 people in the entire casino. It was right out of a David Lynch movie. It was amazing. But aside from all the big hotels, there's also plenty of charming budget options here on Boulder Highway, like the Sunset Motel, the Capri, the Lucky Cuss, and the best one out of all of them, the Sportsman's Royal Manor. You can see this place is definitely fit for a nobleman. I mean, look at them lions standing guard out front. And what's really amazing is, even though this is a residential hotel, you know, weekly, monthly furnished apartments, essentially kind of like a modern day flop house, well, there used to be this awesome pub at the Sportsman's Royal Manor. Unfortunately, I never got around to going there, and now it's too late. And how about this? A dive bar attached to a laundromat. And I think you actually have to walk through the bar to get to the laundromat. Okay, that ought to clue you into the fact that Boulder Highway isn't exactly what you would call the swanky part of town. In fact, you probably wouldn't even call it the safe part of town. In fact, you probably wouldn't even call it the part of town you'd want to be walking around talking to the internet on your cell phone after 4 p.m. Now, that's not to say there aren't plenty of hard-working, blue-collar folks living down here just doing what they can to get by, minding their own business. I mean, say what you will about Boulder Highway, it's a solidly unpretentious part of town. You're not gonna find any Trader Joe's, you're not gonna find any gastropubs, which means it's A-okay in my book. But the fact of the matter is, the part of Boulder Highway in the area around the Tropicana Avenue intersection is one of the main prostitution tracks in the Vegas Valley. So yeah, objectively speaking, it's kind of a sketchy part of town. And the interesting thing is, it's always been that way. Okay, I'm standing here in front of the 4 Mile Bar, and you might be wondering why it's called that. I mean, it's kind of a funny name for a bar, right? Well, come to find out, it's also a very historic name for a bar, because way back in the day, this part of town actually used to be called 4 Mile. That's F-O-R-M-Y-L-E, all one word, 4 Mile. And it was called that because back in the old days, before Vegas was one big cancerous metropolitan sprawl, there was some kind of natural watering hole or spring way out in the desert here that was exactly 4 miles from the middle of town. Okay, back in the pioneer days, before plumbing and municipal water systems, people had to live near water sources to survive. So the city of Las Vegas grew up around the original Las Vegas Springs, which are long dried up, but would have been where the Springs Preserve is today at US 95 and Valley View Boulevard. But if you were traveling back in the days before rest areas, convenience stores, or even paved roads, you had to make sure there were water sources at regular intervals along your route. So 4 Mile was a vital stop for travelers. Anyway, I don't think 4 Mile was much of a settlement until the early 1940s, when the city of Las Vegas abolished prostitution. That's right, contrary to popular belief and those mobile billboards and those little cards they hand you on the strip, prostitution is not legal in Las Vegas, and it hasn't been since 1942. But before that, there was an area of downtown called Block 16 where prostitutes were legally allowed to operate, and brothels flourished. But when the federal government proposed building Nellis Air Force Base here back during World War II, they stipulated that the city would have to kick out all the hookers because they didn't want the good, clean, all-American patriots getting messed up by venereal disease. So the city shut down Block 16 and a bunch of the brothels moved out here to 4 Mile. And one of the most notorious of all the brothels was a place called Roxy's. Okay, this dirt lot just off Boulder Highway is the site of the former Roxy's brothel. It was torn down years ago, but its history is really wild. It was run by a couple named Eddie and Roxy Clippinger. Eddie was a former brothel operator from San Bernardino, and Roxy was a former prostitute, so they knew what they were doing when it came to running a cat house. And indeed, Roxy's did a booming business all the way until 1955, and it saw some wild ups and downs. Robberies, federal raids, plenty of scandal. But no matter how many times the cops came out to Roxy's, it was never shut down. And it was alleged that Sheriff Glenn Jones was actually a part owner of the brothel, and that's why it never got closed. Well, believe it or not, part of Roxy's brothel was still standing here as recently as 2018, and I actually even went in there and made a video, even though I didn't know what it was. That's right, I went in the old, historic, notorious Roxy's brothel and didn't even know it. Like an idiot, I came down here in December 2018 to explore this creepy old two-story building that somebody had told me was an abandoned army barracks. It was super interesting to poke around. A big old two-story building all boarded up with a bunch of bedrooms and one big communal bathroom on each floor. If I'd only known it was the former Roxy's brothel, it would have been even more interesting. But as it was, I just thought it was an old army barracks, and I found a really cool old newspaper from 1962 in one of the closets, which I made a whole separate video just reading the paper because it was so interesting. But come to find out, what I had explored was actually the dormitory for the women who worked at Roxy's. That's right, it was the quarters where the prostitutes lived. I guess after Roxy's closed in 1955, it operated as a boarding house for many years, and then it finally burned down in 2019, I think. Not that long after I explored it, I think only like a month after I explored it, which was probably for the best because it looked like there was homeless people squatting in it and it was all burned down. It looked like it was pretty unsafe. But I was still bummed that they bulldozed it before I had the chance to go back and re-explore it, knowing that it was an infamous brothel. And I do mean infamous, okay? Roxy's, or the Roxy, I think it was called both. Sounds like it was a really wild place. I mean, hidden way out here in the desert, sort of tucked away in a grove of cottonwood trees with a motel and a bar and gambling and slot machines. And they used to hand out these cards in town, these little white cards that said, "Come out and see us sometime." And then they used to pay taxi drivers $1 a head to bring people out here, which back in those days was a lot of money. So there was always plenty of business. But like I said, Roxy's was finally shut down for good in 1955. Because by that time, Vegas had become a full-fledged city and tourist destination, with suburbs and little league teams and PTA moms who would not stand for a house of ill repute operating out in the desert just 4 miles from the middle of town, which by that time had probably already spread out to 4 Mile anyway. So Roxy's was shut down, and all the other brothels were shut down, and now you can't pay for sex in Las Vegas anymore. Just kidding! We all know prostitution is alive and well in Vegas. It just kind of went underground, so to speak. I mean, there's still escort agencies and massage parlors and brothels operating out of random suburban houses. And of course, the women working the streets right here on good old Boulder Highway. The more things change, the more they stay the same. There's actually been a lot of talk lately about legalizing prostitution in Vegas again. So who knows what the future might bring? I mean, what do you think? I mean, would we be better off having legal houses of prostitution, paying taxes and generating revenue for schools like they do in other Nevada counties? And wouldn't the women working as prostitutes be safer that way? I mean, obviously there's still a need for the world's oldest profession, and the cops' 100-year-long game of whack-a-mole doesn't really seem to be working. So wouldn't it be something if they did legalize prostitution again in Vegas and some developer bought this property and reopened a legal brothel here and named it Roxy's? Anyway, that's the sordid and fascinating history of Boulder Highway. I'm gonna shut up now because I'm pretty sure these homeless people living in these tents against the fence next to the old abandoned brothel property are probably tired of hearing my blabbering. But I sure hope you found this video as informative and interesting as I did. And next time you're in this part of town, why not stop in at the 4 Mile Bar and have an ice-cold brewski? And if you do, tell them I sent you.